My name is Bruce Kenner. I'm 57 years old, and I paid for a life that didn't save me a seat. Father's Day morning, I was in my garage, rewiring an old shop light I'd pulled from the business when I sold it. I still go to the garage when I don't know what else to do with myself. Norma used to say I was married to that toolbox. 5 years after her funeral, I stopped arguing with the memory of it. My phone was on the workbench. I'd set 2 gift bags on the passenger seat of my truck the night before. A science kit for my grandson Caden, the kind with real test tubes, not the plastic ones, and a stuffed elephant for my granddaughter Gracie. She'd pointed at it in a store window 3 weeks earlier, and I'd gone back for it the next day. I'd wrapped the handles in tissue paper myself. I watched a YouTube video for that, twice. At 11:40, I sat down on an old cooler and opened Facebook. That was the only reason I had the app. My daughter posted pictures there, and that was how I saw my grandkids sometimes between visits. The video loaded slow on my home Wi-Fi. 40 seconds of someone's shaky phone camera panning across a deck at a lake house I didn't recognize. Long table with paper plates and a blue tablecloth. My daughter in a sundress. My son-in-law in a polo with a golf logo. My grandson with his hair combed for once. My granddaughter in her yellow dress. And in the center seat, wearing a foam crown that said "Number 1 Dad," was my son-in-law's father. The caption read, "To the men who raised us, Happy Father's Day." I watched it through twice. Then I counted the chairs the way you count things when you're trying to stay calm. 8 chairs, 8 people, not one of them empty. Nobody forgot. The table had exactly the number of chairs for exactly the people they wanted there. I wasn't one of them. I didn't comment, I didn't call. I set the phone face down on top of the toolbox. The gift bags were still on the passenger's seat of my truck, tissue paper sticking up out of the top. I'd spent 45 minutes in the store, picking out that science kit. Norma handled all of it once. The gifts, the cards she signed from both of us, the phone calls to check what sizes the kids were wearing. She kept a running list on a notepad in the kitchen drawer. When she died, I found that list and used it for 2 years, until the kids' ages made half of it wrong. I taught myself to wrap presents from YouTube. I got decent at it. Last Father's Day, my daughter had texted at 7 in the evening. "Hey Dad, hope you had a good one." I'd sent a thumbs up. Told myself a text was something. This year I didn't get a text until Tuesday, and it wasn't about Father's Day. I put the gift bags in the back of my truck and drove to my daughter's house. I'd texted ahead. She sent a smiley face back, which is what she does now instead of words. Her car wasn't in the driveway. The babysitter answered, a college girl named Britt, and let me into the front hall while she went to find my grandson. Their front hallway has a gallery wall. My daughter laid every frame out on the living room floor first, taped paper templates to the wall, measured twice before we hung a single nail. I helped her with the whole thing. I still have the laser level that found those studs. I hadn't stood in that hallway in close to a year. We usually met at the door or in the driveway. I looked at the wall the way you look at something familiar that you're suddenly not sure of anymore. The photo of me walking my daughter up the aisle at First Methodist, her hand gripping my forearm because her heels were sinking into the runner, used to be fourth from the left. It wasn't there. In its place was a photo of just her and my son-in-law under the ceremony arch. Nice photo, professional. I looked for the one of me in the hospital room holding my grandson the morning he was born. Blue recliner by the window, my reading glasses pushed up on my forehead. Him in a striped blanket Norma had been making before she got too sick to finish much of anything. That one was gone too. I counted the frames, 15 total, 3 of them were new. My son-in-law's father at a baseball diamond with my grandson, both of them in matching jerseys. My son-in-law's father at the lake teaching my grandson to cast off a dock. My son-in-law's father at Christmas with both grandkids on his lap, the same foam crown on his head I'd seen in the video. I didn't ask Britt about it. I stood in that hallway and counted because that's what I do when I need to stay level. Then I heard my grandson sliding down the hall in his socks, the last 4 feet on the hardwood the way he always does, and he came around the corner, grinning. "Hey, Bruce." He said it happy. That's the thing I keep coming back to. There was no meanness in it anywhere. He was 9 years old and genuinely glad to see me, and he said my first name like he'd been saying it his whole life. I crouched down. My right knee doesn't love that anymore. You don't call me Grandpa anymore. He shrugged the way kids shrug when something's already been settled for them. Mom says Grandpa is Grandpa Harvey. She says it gets confusing. When did she say that? I don't know. Before school started, I think. He was already pulling tissue paper out of the gift bag. Is this the one with the real test tubes? Tyler has one. My granddaughter came around the corner, then, 6 years old, dragging her blanket. She saw me and her whole face opened up. Grandpa. My grandson corrected her without even looking up. Not Grandpa, Gracie, that's just Bruce. She stopped. She looked at her brother, then at me, waiting for one of us to tell her which one was right. I have thought about that pause more times than I want to count. I got down on one knee on the hardwood. You can call me whatever feels right, I told her, but I want you to know who I am. My grandson said, okay, and went back to examining the test tubes. I put my hand on his head for a second. Thanks for being straight with me. You're welcome, Bruce, he said. I went and sat in my truck in the driveway for 15 minutes. I didn't cry. I adjusted the mirrors twice, and then drove across town to my sister Wanda's place, a house she's had since her divorce in 2009, and that still has a porch swing that needs repainting. I avoid Wanda because she says the thing. Whatever the true thing is, she says it, and then you have to live in a world where it's been said out loud. Norma used to love her for that. It's taken me most of my life to appreciate it. She poured iced tea neither of us drank, and I told her about the video. I told it flat, the way I'd explain a bad circuit to a customer. 8 chairs, the foam crown, the caption. She didn't say, oh, Bruce. She didn't reach across the table. You weren't forgotten, she said. You were phased out. I started to say that was a strong way to put it. She picked up her phone and turned the screen toward me. My son-in-law's Facebook. 14 posts going back 8 months. 2 birthday parties, a lake weekend, Little League playoffs, Thanksgiving, my granddaughter's school play. Not one of them had me in it. In 12 of them, my son-in-law's father was there. His business award nomination, Wanda said. Chamber of Commerce. Outstanding small business member. He submitted the family photo from the lake house for the profile. March weekend from the look of it, before the water was warm. I knew that lake house. I'd helped pay for the boat slip the first summer they rented it. 4 months before Father's Day, she said. The decision was already made. The video wasn't the decision, it was the announcement. Wanda put the phone down. So here's what I want to know. If they were done with you in March, was your money still going through in June? Sal Torino does my books. He's been doing them since I bought my second van, back when the business was just me and a couple apprentices. He charges me in fishing access and takes that arrangement very seriously. Thursday evening, he had my personal ledger spread across my kitchen table, reading glasses down his nose. He turned the yellow pad around without saying anything first. He'd circled the total twice. You know what you've put out the door in the last decade? He asked. I know what I send every month. That's not the same question. He tapped the number. Just under 240,000 rough. That's the mortgage co-assist, the insurance, the business startup account, the roof repair in 2021, the education funds. That's this decade alone. I kept looking at the window above the sink. Your retirement's 7 years behind where it should be, he said. You know that, right? I did. I'd pushed it back twice. Once when they bought the house and my son-in-law's debt-to-income ratio was too high for a decent rate. Once when his business loan fell through and my daughter called me from a parking lot. What are you going to do? Sal asked. I told him I didn't know yet. That was a lie, and I think he knew it was a lie, and he let me have it anyway. It's why he's good at fishing. Saturday night I called my daughter. 6 rings. When she picked up, there was restaurant noise behind her. Dad, hey, everything okay? I didn't mention the hallway or the Facebook video or the lake house photo. I was thinking I'd come by Sunday, I said. Have dinner with you all. A pause. This week is kind of packed. You know how you are with big group things, Dad. It'd probably just be a lot. I switched the phone to my other ear. When did your son start calling me Bruce? Restaurant noise. 4 seconds of it. Someone laughed at the far end of the room. Don't make it into a thing, she said. I'm dealing with a lot right now, you have no idea. I'm asking one question. I've got to go. They're calling our table. She hung up first. I stood in my kitchen with the phone still against my ear. She hadn't asked what I meant. She hadn't said, what are you talking about? She'd said, don't make it into a thing. You only defend yourself against a question you already know the answer to. She'd known. She'd sat across from me at my granddaughter's birthday dinner in April and watched my grandson call me Bruce twice over cake and said nothing. I opened the banking app, kitchen table, stove light on, phone face up. I worked top to bottom, the way you work a panel. First transfer, $400 a month to the joint account for the mortgage co-assist. The app asked if I was sure. I pressed confirm. Second transfer, $820 a month to my son-in-law's business account, the startup money I'd been putting in since the SBA loan fell through. Confirm. Third transfer I couldn't do from the app. Monday morning I called the insurance office and asked them to remove my son-in-law from my commercial umbrella policy. He'd been listed as an additional insured since 2019 when his own coverage had a gap, and the arrangement had never been revisited. The woman on the phone asked if I wanted it effective immediately. I said yes. She said she'd send confirmation to both addresses of record. I said please do. Fourth transfer I didn't cancel. I want to be clear about this because it's the part people get wrong. The education account was for my grandchildren. It had never been for their parents. So Tuesday I drove to the credit union in Millbrook and moved the full balance into a 529 account with my name as sole custodian, both kids as beneficiaries. Same monthly contribution, different lock on the door. I sat in the credit union parking lot and wrote my daughter a letter on a legal pad. 4 sentences. Took me 2 days to get them right. I told her the mortgage assist, the business account, and the insurance had ended. I told her the education money was safe and still running, and that she could call the credit union any time to hear the balance read back to her. I told her I was still her children's grandfather. I told her I was just no longer her bank. I mailed it. Nobody called for 22 days. Here's what those 3 weeks were like, and I want to be honest, because people seem to expect a particular kind of suffering from this part. It wasn't like that. I picked up a commercial rewire job 2 towns over, the kind I'd stopped taking years ago when the business had enough hands, and I worked 10-hour days and came home tired in the right way. I rebuilt my back steps, which had a soft tread since 2020, and which I'd been stepping over in my head every morning for 4 years. I cooked. One night I made Norma's chicken and dumplings from her actual handwritten card, and I got it close enough that I wasn't sad while I ate it, just quiet. Wanda came by on a Saturday, and we caught up for 2 hours on her porch swing, and I felt like a man with a life again, which was a feeling I'd misplaced somewhere. Day 19. I made the mistake of opening Facebook. My son-in-law had posted a story. He was standing in front of a commercial space I didn't recognize. Corner unit, big windows, 3 times the square footage of his current office. Big moves coming, the caption said. This family doesn't quit. He'd signed a new lease. In the same month, my $820 had stopped going into his account. Nobody had opened my letter, or, if they had, nobody believed it was permanent. The first of the month was 10 days out. I went to work at 8:30 on the 1st. I was pulling wire through a drop ceiling when my phone buzzed against my hip. Dad, the bank is saying the transfer didn't go through. Can you call them? I read it twice, put the phone in my pocket, and finished the run. There's a particular kind of peace in work that needs both hands. Missed call at 11:05. Missed call at 11:48. At 12:30, a text from my son-in-law. Long one. He used the word miscommunication twice and called the insurance situation a clerical issue. Signed it with his initial. I called at 6 after I'd cleaned up. My daughter answered before the first ring finished. Dad, thank God. There's no bank error, I said. I stopped them. I'm allowed to stop them. The sound she made, I'd heard one other time in my life, and I won't make more of the comparison than it deserves. It's just the sound a person makes when a floor disappears under them. You can't just Dad, he has a lease. I know. You didn't even warn us. I mailed a letter 3.5 weeks ago. Then my son-in-law's voice, close to the phone, steady. The practiced steadiness of a man who runs meetings. Hey, let's all take a breath here. I hear you, and I want you to know we've heard you. A pause. So how long are you planning on keeping this up? Not why, not what did we do, just how long. He thought I was leverage having a bad month. He thought there was a number I'd settle for, and a timeline I'd run out of. Then he said the worst thing he could have said. You're punishing 2 little kids over a Facebook video. I let that sit on the line for 5 full seconds. Get a pen, I said. I don't need. I heard a drawer slide open. The education money hasn't stopped, I said. It never stopped. It's in a 529 at Millbrook Credit Union. Both kids are on it. I'm still putting in $1,100 a month. Balance as of Friday is $63,400. Silence. You don't have the right to manage that account alone. It's my money. My name's on it. Yours never was. I kept my voice level. In 2022, $1,200 came out of the old savings account for a fishing boat you sold 6 months later. In 2023, $4,200 came out for the kitchen renovation. I saw both. I never said one word about either one. That is a really unfair characterization. I'm not characterizing anything. I'm telling you why the account moved. My daughter got the phone back. She was crying the real kind. Dad, please, don't do this to the kids. And here's what I said, and I've had a year to think it over, and I've never once wished I'd said it differently. I'm not doing anything to the kids. I stopped the adults from spending the kids' money. She hung up. I stood in my kitchen with my hands shaking. Doing the right thing didn't feel good. It just felt done. Harvey Osmond called me on a Thursday, my son-in-law's father, a man whose face I'd been looking at in every photo on my daughter's wall for the past year, in every frame where mine used to be. First real conversation we'd ever had. He sounded like a man returning something borrowed. I didn't know, he said. About Father's Day, about any of it, your daughter told me you were busy. Said you don't love those big group things. She said it more than once. Said it in the car, on the way to the lake house. I pulled up my message history with my daughter and scrolled back 2 years. Nothing around either Father's Day. Not an invitation, not a mention. Not a text that said, "Can you make it this year?" The foam crown, Harvey said. I'd never seen it before in my life. It was sitting at my plate when we sat down. Neither of us said anything for a while. I've got 4 grandkids, he finally said. Not one of them is mine by blood. I married into this family 11 years ago, and I've been careful every day not to take something that belonged to somebody else. He cleared his throat. Somebody wasn't as careful. He told me about the Chamber of Commerce dinner, my son-in-law's business award. Saturday night, 50-some people, the ballroom at the Riverside Event Center. Come, he said. I'll handle where people sit. I didn't watch the new office lease fall apart. I heard about it the way you hear about anything in a county this size, in pieces, from people mentioning things in passing. Wanda's friend, who manages commercial property on that block, got the first part. My son-in-law had missed month 2 on the new space. He'd covered month 1 out of savings. That's how my daughter found out their savings account had $1,100 in it. She'd thought it was somewhere around $14,000. She'd been told it was around $14,000. He'd been moving money since February. Deposit on the office, a consultant, professional photos for the award application, a weekend in Asheville that appeared on the joint card statement as a business expense. I want to say something honest here, and it isn't a flattering thing to say. Part of me was glad. Not glad my daughter was standing in the middle of a mess she hadn't known was there. Glad she was finally in the same room I'd been standing in, looking at a number that someone else had decided for her, with no say in how it got there. Wanda told me what my son-in-law said to my daughter in their driveway that evening, with the neighbor across the street coming out to check his mailbox twice. 4 words. Don't make it a thing. The same words my daughter had said to me on the phone. She'd heard them somewhere and handed them to me first, and now they'd traveled all the way back around. I ironed a shirt the night before the dinner. Not a good one. The gray one Norma picked out for her cousin's rehearsal dinner years ago, which I've worn maybe 5 times. She'd made me try it on in the store. Said the collar sat right. Wanda came over while I was at the ironing board and stood in the kitchen doorway. You sure about this? I'm going. He's going to have that whole room warmed up before you walk through the door. That's right. I hung the shirt on the doorframe. And it's also the one place in the world where he can't hang up the phone. She thought about that for a while. Then she said she'd be there by 7, and if I needed a ride home I should look at her, and she'd start coughing. After she left I read the notebook page I'd been writing for 9 days. 4 sentences. I said them out loud to the kitchen window. I know my limits. I've spent 57 years learning exactly where they are. Harvey met me at the door of the Riverside Event Center and shook my hand in front of whoever was watching, held it a beat longer than handshakes usually go. Bruce, glad you made it. Loud enough to carry to the nearest 2 tables. He walked me the length of the room. I could feel people doing the arithmetic, looking back and forth between us, coming up with different answers. My son-in-law was by the bar and went still when he saw me. My daughter was near the windows and didn't move. Then I heard small sneakers on the floor and my grandson appeared under somebody's elbow. "Bruce, how come you get to sit up here?" 5 or 6 people around us heard it. A small wince moved through the nearest chairs. Harvey put his hand flat on the back of my chair. "Because that's your grandfather's seat." My grandson frowned. "But you're also Grandpa." "I'm your grandfather on your dad's side." Harvey's voice didn't drop at all. "He's your grandfather on your mom's side. You've got 2 of us. Most kids only get 1. That's lucky." He pointed at the bread basket. "Go grab some rolls before they're gone." My grandson took about 2 seconds with that and went. After dinner, my son-in-law stood with his award plaque and gave his speech. He talked about building something from nothing. He talked about the people who showed up for him. Then he raised his glass and looked around the room. To family. Not obligation, not history. A practiced pause. Who shows up? That's what it comes down to. Not who writes the check. Who's actually in the room. A laugh moved through maybe a third of the tables. It went about halfway down the room and stopped where it stopped. Wanda was 4 seats down from me. She set her fork on the tablecloth without a sound and looked at me. And I want to tell you exactly what I felt, because I've had a year to sort through it. It wasn't anger. It was relief. Because he'd just said it out loud. In front of 50 people, 2 chamber board members, the vice principal of my grandson's school, and a woman who writes the business column for the county paper. He'd picked the one subject he could not afford to have discussed in public, and he'd put it on the table himself. He'd handed me the microphone without knowing it. I stood up. "Can I borrow that for a second?" In front of 50 people, with Harvey's hand already resting on the table beside mine, there was no graceful way to say no. The microphone popped when it changed hands. Someone in the back said, "Uh-oh." Then the room went quiet, in the specific way a room goes quiet, when it knows something is about to be said that can't be unsaid. "My name is Bruce Kenner," my voice held. "I'm Kelsey's father. I'm Caden and Gracie's grandfather." A chair shifted somewhere. Nobody else moved. He's right. What matters is who shows up. I've been showing up for 11 years. I turned slightly so I wasn't talking directly at my son-in-law. For 11 years I've covered the gap on the house mortgage. I've paid the insurance. I've funded the business startup account. I've put money into both of my grandchildren's education every single month. I paused. Last month I stopped 3 of those. The 4th is still running. That one has always been for the kids, not the adults. I looked at Harvey. I wasn't invited to Father's Day. I didn't come here tonight to embarrass anyone about that. I came because Harvey gave me a seat, and I needed one. I set the microphone on the tablecloth. "Thank you, Harvey." I sat down. I counted to 4. That's what I do. The vice principal at the far end of the table started clapping. Then the woman across from me. Then the side table near the windows. And then most of the room. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a standing ovation. It was more specific than that. It was the sound of a room full of people quietly making up their minds. My son-in-law went out the side door near the kitchen before dessert came out. My daughter sat in her chair until most of the room had cleared. Then she came and found me at my truck. "You humiliated me in front of every person I know." No tears. That's how I knew we were finally having the real conversation. I said my name and I said what's true. I told her, "If the true part is humiliating, that's not something I did to you." She wrapped her arms around herself in the parking lot. It was July and still warm, and she was cold anyway. "It was me," she said. "The name thing, with your grandson." I waited. He thought it would confuse the kids. Having 2 people they called the same thing. He said kids need consistency. And Harvey was there every weekend, every game, every holiday, and you. She stopped. "I taught your grandson because it was easier than arguing about it every Sunday dinner." "I know. You don't know what it's like in that house." "Then tell me." She did. Some of it, standing in a parking lot in the middle of July. About decisions she didn't get to make. About the joint account she had to ask permission to use for anything over a couple $100s. About a conversation her husband had with her in the spring. Something about a husband and wife being a unit, his family being his unit, and if she couldn't get clear on that they should probably talk to someone. And by the way, his cousin did family law in Columbus. She was 24 when she married him. I walked her up that aisle. I thought he was a serious young man. Dad, her voice was smaller now. Are we okay? I looked at her for a long time. No, I said, not yet. She flinched and I let her. I'm not angry that you were scared. I'm sad that you let me pay for it. I reached into the truck and got an envelope from the glove box. Inside was one page, the 529 account number, both kids' full names, dates of birth, the current balance, and the main number for Millbrook Credit Union. You can call them anytime. They'll read you the balance. You don't need my permission for anything on that page. She held it with both hands. 3 days later, Harvey called me. Sounded like a man who hadn't slept. We had a fight, he said. Adrian and me. He stopped. My wife, biggest one in a while. I told him I was sorry. Don't be. It was overdue. A long breath on the line. I told Wade this wasn't right. I told him that if a man takes another man's seat at his family's own table and stays quiet about it, that's not something I raised. He cleared his throat. He didn't receive it well. Neither of us said anything for a while. A screen door banged on his end of the line. Come fish with me Saturday, he said. I've got a boat I take out twice a year, and it deserves better than that. I said I'd bring the coffee. The award went to someone else. I heard the committee had concerns after a board member started asking around. Nobody made an announcement. In a county this size, nobody has to. One of the 2 donors who pulled out had been in the room that night. The other one's wife played cards with a woman who was. My son-in-law sent me an email in August. Subject line, moving forward. 300 words professionally drafted. He mentioned a breakdown in communication. He proposed coffee to clear the air and reset. In the second to last paragraph, he suggested we discuss restoring the previous financial arrangements for the benefit of the family. 300 words and not one of them was sorry. Not one apology in any form. A man that careful with language does not leave the apology out by accident. I didn't reply. My daughter brought the kids to my house on a Wednesday in September. She parked in the driveway, walked them to the door, and went back and sat in the car, with the windows down. I understood that there are rooms a person can't be in yet. You let them get there at their own speed. My granddaughter went straight for the cabinet where I keep spare wire nuts and sorted them by color. She's 6. It's a perfectly sound system. My grandson stood in the middle of my garage with his hands in his pockets, like a man who'd come to settle something. Are you actually my grandpa, he said, like for real? I am. How do I know? Best question anyone had asked me in over a year. I went inside and came back with the small photo album I'd kept since before he was born. I turned to the second page. A hospital room, a blue recliner by the window. Me holding a baby in a striped blanket, reading glasses pushed up on my forehead. A date and time written on a sticky note in the corner of the page. That's the morning you were born, I said. I wrote the time down in the hallway outside because I didn't want to forget it. 6:41 in the morning, 7 pounds, 11 ounces. He looked at it a long time. He's a reader, always has been. You were there? I was the second person to hold you. Your mom was first. That's the right order. He put his finger on the sticky note. Okay, he said, and then after a second, Grandpa. First time in close to 14 months. I didn't make a thing of it. I said, you want to help me wire something in the garage? He said yeah, and we went out and I showed him how to test the circuit, and he got it right on the 3rd try, and he looked at me with his whole face when the indicator light came on. My granddaughter climbed up on the workbench stool and handed me tools I didn't ask for, which is the most helpful kind of help there is. Out in the driveway, my daughter sat with her hand over her mouth. She came in when she came back for them, stood by the counter with her keys in her hand. Dad, are you going to turn any of it back on? I'd been ready for the question. No. She nodded. Something went out of her shoulders. Here's what I will do. I handed her the page I'd been carrying in my shirt pocket for 2 weeks. The education account stays with me. Same contribution every month. You can see the statements whenever you ask. No permission needed. I looked at her. Wednesday nights, the kids are here. Not when it's convenient. Wednesdays, everyone. My name goes on the guest list for every holiday before the reservation is made. If I'm not on it, I don't come. I'm not finding out from a Facebook video again. I looked back at the page, and I don't lend money. Not to you, not to him, not for an emergency. If you're in real trouble, you call me and we work it out together. but the transfers are done. She read it twice. That's fair. It's not generous. It's just honest. I spent 11 years confusing the two. She folded the page and put it in her purse. I've been seeing a therapist, she said, in Millbrook, so nobody I know sees my car there. I didn't ask her anything else about it. Some doors you let a person walk through at their own pace. My daughter and her husband separated in the winter. I want to be careful about how I say this. That was not my doing. I never said one word to her about her marriage, before or after. What I know is that she learned how to say no to something, and it turned out that in that house, no was a load-bearing wall. Harvey and I fish the first Saturday of every month now. He brings the same gas station coffee every time, and I've stopped mentioning it. He talks about his grandkids the way a man talks about things he knows he got lucky with. I do the same. Wanda told me at Thanksgiving that I'm different. Not fixed, she was careful to say that. Just different. You were quiet before in a way that cost you things, she said. Now you're quiet because you've already said what you needed to say. Those aren't the same quiet. She's right. I know she's right. For 11 years, I stayed silent because I didn't want to be a burden. And every year of silence they read as permission. Norma used to speak for me. She'd say Bruce wants to come for the holidays, and everyone would answer her, and I'd get to keep my mouth shut and still have a seat at the table. When she died, nobody held that space, and I didn't know how to hold it myself. And the people who should have noticed didn't notice. And somewhere in there the silence became my answer, even when I hadn't meant it to be. The 529 account crossed 71,000 in October. I still put the same amount in on the first of every month. I've told exactly 3 people that number. Sal, my sister, and now you. Father's Day came around again. I went to the garage. I want to be honest about that, because people expect a transformed man at the end of a story like this. I hadn't been transformed. It was Sunday morning, and I went where I go on Sunday mornings when I don't know what else to do with myself, which is where the work is. I was sorting a bin of pipe fittings that didn't need sorting when my phone rang. Video call. My grandson's face filling most of the screen, one eye taking up a third of it. Grandpa, Mom says come for lunch. We're waiting on you. I could hear my granddaughter shouting something in the background. I could hear Wanda answering her. I was 12 minutes away. I made it in 9. 6 of us at my daughter's dining room table. Her, my grandson, my granddaughter, Wanda, Harvey, who'd been invited on his own account and who brought a pie from the good bakery on 4th Street, and me. There was a folded card on my plate, construction paper, cut crooked with safety scissors, thick crayon letters, uneven. GRPA Bruce. My grandson leaned over and told me quietly that his sister had done the whole thing herself, and he'd tried to help her with the spelling, and she had not been interested in his help. Nobody took a picture. My daughter reached for her phone at one point and then put it face down on the sideboard. No, she said. Let's just eat. My seat was at the end nearest the kitchen, the chair closest to the door, where you can get up and refill everyone's water without asking anyone to move. Norma always sat there. I sat beside her for 32 years and watched her do it without being asked, without making it a thing. The seat nobody wants at the table. But there was a card on it with my name on it. The name was spelled wrong, and the letters went backward in 2 places, and it was absolutely right. I've thought a lot about the difference between that table and the one in the video. It isn't the food, it isn't the location or how many people. It's that when someone counted the seats, they counted me in. And they wrote my name on a card and put it there before I walked through the door. Here's what I learned at 57, and I'll leave it with you. Silence doesn't read as dignity, it reads as permission. For 11 years I told myself that staying quiet was the graceful choice, that asking for a seat at my own family's table would make me a burden, and the one thing I would not be was a burden. But my silence was being read as consent every single time. They took my quiet as a yes to all of it, and I handed it to them year after year without meaning to. You are allowed to stop carrying a table that doesn't have a place set for you. That's not bitterness. That's not punishment. That's just honesty that arrived a little late. And if someone does put your name on the card, even if they spell it sideways, even if the letters are backwards, even if a 6-year-old did it in orange crayon at the last minute, sit down. That's the seat. That was always the seat.